Right then, I've been putting this video off for long enough. Let's talk about Red Bull Racing because F1 is back this weekend and we've had a long summer break, but one of the big talking points this season has been Red Bull for a variety of reasons. Be it that Christian Horner getting fired, Max Verstappen potentially leaving and then having talks with Mercedes, but then he's staying for another year, key personnel leaving the team, their downward spiral continuing. It has been a soap opera. It's been a massive soap opera. In fact, it has pretty much been this. Next up, we are taking a trip to Milton Keynes, where Christian receives some devastating news and Max makes a big decision about his future. Now look, all jokes aside, Red Bull have been... Look, this downfall has been coming for quite some time, and I honestly cannot remember the last time a team fell down this badly within a reg set. Like, from going and winning all but one race in 2023 to losing the Constructors' Championship the following season and basically requiring a head start for Max to win the Drivers' Championship to being completely out of it by the summer break in 2025. It has been brutal, spectacular, and just bemusing all at the same point. And I'm just going to cover some of the key areas within the last sort of 12 to 18 months that have led us to this moment for Red Bull Racing. So obviously we had the whole Christian Horner sideshow at the beginning of last season. That's not something I particularly want to get into because I think there's enough press coverage out there, but certainly it was an unsavoury episode for Red Bull. One that I don't think covered the organisation in a lot of good light, to be honest with you. And, my opinions are, Christian Horner was very lucky to survive that, if I'm being frank. But after that, the first key moment, the really big key moment I want to laser in on is Adrian Newey leaving the team. This was massive because Newey was such a foundational figure within Red Bull Racing. Yeah, he joined a couple of years after they joined the Formula One grid, but without him, I'm not sure they have the same levels of success that they have had. He is still the premier designer in Formula One and is why so many people are going to be looking at Aston Martin in 2026 simply because of his presence there and how good he is at his job. So for them to lose him was massive, and honestly, whilst I think this is a bit of a coincidence, their performance dropped off as soon as Newey left. Like, Lando Norris won the weekend he announced he was leaving. Now, yes, they were still able to win another Drivers' Championship with Max Verstappen, but they did lose the Constructors' Championship, and it was becoming clear that his vision with the team and the other vision, the vision of others within the team just weren't aligning. There were development decisions that perhaps Adrian wasn't happy about, and it led them down a path that they are still on now and trying to correct, but realistically it's too late. So his departure was massive, and it has shown how important he is to that team. Because look, you've got some very, very talented designers and aerodynamicists there, but they're not Adrian Newey. There are levels to this game, and Adrian Newey is the greatest of all time. So to lose him, massive. Then of course Jonathan Wheatley left at the end of towards the end of last year. Another key figure. He was the one that drove the standards on the pit stops. He was the brutally brilliant, knew the rule book inside out, knew exactly what to do in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi 21. So important for that team. Now, his departure I think is less impactful than Newey's, and also it's one that I think Red Bull were probably powerless to stop because of the fact that he was offered a team principal position at Audi, or Sauber/Audi. It's a bit like when James Vowles left Mercedes. James Vowles was a key figure at Mercedes, but you're never really going to stop somebody going and becoming a team principal, and you just need to see the upturn in form that Sauber have had since Jonathan Wheatley took over. It's no coincidence. So and Red Bull, some of their brilliant top of class operational standards have definitely gone down. Their pit stops this year have been woeful at points. So yeah, I think an interesting one there for sure with Wheatley. But I think of the key elements for Red Bull's downfall, his was probably the hardest to stop, simply because of the fact that he was getting a promotion, and it didn't look like Horner was going anywhere, so it wasn't likely like he was going to succeed Horner. Of course, Christian Horner then got fired just a few months ago. Now look, I'm not a Christian Horner fan. I've never been a Christian Horner fan. But was I surprised when he got sacked? Absolutely I was. Goddamn-lutely I was. I basically felt that he probably should have gone to the end of the season and then been relieved of his duties, because you look at the downturn he has overseen, dropping off from that incredible 2023 to where they are now, out of both championships. Then there was the mismanagement of Checo Perez's contract. Then there was the mismanagement of who succeeded him, with Liam Lawson only lasting 2 races and then Yuki Tsunoda coming in. And then you look at what's been happening with his successor, Lauren Mekies, and Mekies kind of making sure that the cars have the same level of upgrade on them, by moving one of Max's spare floors onto Yuki's car. It's clear to me that basically Horner was running the team as a 1.5 car team. And, people deride me in the comments saying, "Oh, Baxty, you're talking nonsense." You heard what Checo Perez had to say. And I think he has been the biggest beneficiary from this whole situation. Because, yes, he's coming back with Cadillac next year. I think we all knew that anyway before it was confirmed a few days ago. But honestly speaking, he survived so hard within that team when things were going against him. Yeah, and he knew he wasn't going there to win championships, despite all of his, helpful words at points during his time there. But yeah, he was never ever going to win a championship against Max. Max was always going to beat him. But it goes to show how well he was having to drive just to keep his head above water, given the problems that Lawson and Tsunoda have had. And that ultimately falls on Horner. Now, as I said, I am surprised at the timing of the decision, but ultimately I think it was probably always going to happen. Now, Red Bull clearly want to run the team more as a board run thing, which is not really the best thing to do. We just look at Ferrari. But I think ultimately Horner's time with the team was coming to an end, and it needed to happen. So that much is there. And I think Lauren Mekies, on the whole, has been fine since he came in. Obviously, his first race was a sprint race, which he won with Max. But I think Hungary was a very difficult weekend for Red Bull. It was horrifically awful for them. But I think that was more of a car problem, and Lauren Mekies can't really be expected to carry the can for that, considering he's just come on board. But on the whole, I think he's definitely starting to shift the culture of the team, and I think that's probably going to be a good thing for them moving forward. But whether they'll have the same level of success remains to be seen. And the last factor in that is Max Verstappen, because Max is basically the last piece of the puzzle left. Yes, you've got Helmut Marko there, but Helmut will be there regardless, but he's only useful really in identifying the drivers, and okay, he's not really done the best job there. But I'm not going to spend time focusing on Helmut Marko because we know he's not going anywhere, let's be frank. But Max is the last key puzzle here, piece of the puzzle. It's clear he wants to leave, but he is contractually bound to drive for them next year. He knows he can't win the championship this year, despite the fact that he has probably been the best. Well, he has been the best driver this year. He's been brilliant, taking pole positions where he shouldn't be taking them, winning 2 races with unbelievably flawless drives. But that Red Bull was powerless to stop the march of McLaren, and this is why Piastri or Norris will win the championship this year. But Max isn't somebody that wants to sit by and just sort of happily sit there and finish 4th and 5th and maybe nick a podium here or there and it all be good vibes and stuff. Yeah, Max is there to win championships. He's won 4 of them already. He wants to win more. That is why the Mercedes rumours will not go away. And it is why I think it's most likely that if Max does leave Red Bull, it will be at the end of next year and he will likely go to Mercedes. I really thought Aston would be a good option for him, but clearly he's not interested. Fine. You know, and as a Mercedes fan, would I welcome Max to the team? Yeah, of course I would. You know, I'd be cautious about him being there because I'd be worried about the team culture that's been fostered there over the course of over a decade. But as a driver, 100%, you need to get him. He is on form at the moment, the best driver on the grid. So go and get him. But he is stuck there, and I think the pressure is on Red Bull now to deliver Max a car for next year to hold on to him. If they don't do that, and for all intents and purposes, the numbers coming out of, well, 1 minute you hear they're doing well, the next they're not, and now they're talking about doing well again, so who knows. But yeah, I think next year is the most important year in the history of Red Bull and in the history of Max Verstappen's career, because big decisions will need to be made. I personally think Max needs to get out of there and go to Mercedes, but let's see what happens. Anyway, that's my little soapbox on Red Bull. I hope you've enjoyed. If you want to see more content from me, then please like and subscribe. And aren't we all excited to have the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend? Drop your predictions below. I'm predicting Lando Norris to win this weekend. I'm on a 5-race prediction winning streak, and I fully expect it to be 6 come the end of this weekend. But until next time, guys, stay safe, and I shall speak to you all very, very soon.